people, something called the central route and the peripheral route. The key finding is this: highly engaged people process information differently than less engaged people. So if you try to appeal to less engaged voters in the same way that you appeal to highly engaged voters, you are likely to leave votes on the table. Because someone who is highly engaged about politics will make decisions differently than someone who's less engaged, in the same way that someone who is a serious football fan will make decisions and judgments about football in a different way than I will, because I don't care about football. And so I'm less engaged in that regard. And so what they found is that your detailed arguments and evidence, your party platform, your manifesto, the hard stuff of where you are on the issues, that appeals to the central route. We might call that the core of the party. People who come to conventions, volunteers, activists, donors, candidates, those people who make up every day the party itself. Detailed arguments and evidence appeal to them. But the crowd, those non-political voters who might come in our direction, they're not going to read 52 different pages of the manifesto. They're not going to check the website, subsection 42, paragraph 7, and where we stand on this particular issue and that particular issue. The crowd, because they're less engaged, they're looking for cues and signals as shortcuts. So when we're appealing to the core, what type of things are we talking about? To show that we really understand the problem. Solutions, benefits, evidence, data, testimonials, platform, manifesto, and a sound process of arriving at that. The core is looking for that, and the core is really important, because without the core, we don't have volunteers, we don't have activists, we don't have donors, we don't have people who are willing to do the hard work of the party. So the core has to be activated, they have to be excited, they have to be ginned up. But if our brand ends there, then we limit how far that we can really go. So what is the crowd looking for? Look how different the list is that I'm about to bring up from the last list. Themes, visual identity, storytelling, emotional connection, social proof, showing that people are with us, aesthetic appeal, the charisma of the candidate, and using positive imagery consistently over time. That is a radically different list. That is a completely different list, because that appeals to people who are not in this room. How many non-political people do we have in the room? Right? The people who will determine the outcome of a competitive election are non-political people. We call them normal. Right? So this is where, when we're appealing to the crowd, this is where things like visual identity and symbolism comes in. This is where the whole psychology of color comes in. It's no coincidence that no major political party on earth uses pink as their party's color. It's also not a coincidence that the Austrian People's Party and the Teals in Australia use the same color, because that turquoise teal color evokes feelings of communication and openness and so on. Party's themes, the theme of our party has to go beyond the core. It has to appeal to both the core and the crowd. And I put 3 themes, the Obama themes and Trump themes on the screen here at the same time. Both appealing to the core as well as to the crowd, not just one or the other. It's going to be great to see this party about to take control in Ottawa, by the way. Our visual identity has to also have broad appeal. The visual identity has to go beyond the core. The core has to see something that they love in it, but it also has to appeal to the crowd. And in our research on this, we found that there are 3 parties around the world, 3 IDU member parties, that have successfully adopted this model, whether they knew it or not. And the first example, of course, probably the best example, comes from Sebastian Kurz and the Austrian People's Party in 2017. So Sebastian Kurz comes in, party had not been in power in a long time, party had not won an election outright in a long time. Sebastian Kurz comes in, and what does he do? On philosophy, on issues, he moves the party to the right. The party becomes clearer on issues like migration and taxation and so on. The party becomes actually clearer and moved to the right. However, on all of the other stuff, the party shifts its appeal, its entire visual identity, all of the soft stuff gets completely redone. They change the party's color from black to this teal turquoise color. They change the name of the party to the new Austrian People's Party. The whole design language, all of that changed specifically to appeal to young people. And what happened? The Austrian People's Party won, and Sebastian Kurz became the youngest head of government in the world in 2017 at age 34. Second great example, from the CSU in Bavaria. I think they've run Bavaria since like 1492 or something like that, close to that. Anyway, most of the post-war period, the CSU has run Bavaria, and I'm highlighting here not the logo, but what you see below. So we're all in politics, so we know that when a message goes on a podium sign, you're aiming it to a wide audience. In German, this reads näher an Menschen, which means closer to people. That's a great theme. That's a theme which speaks to the core. It speaks to the crowd. It implies a contrast because it implies that our opponents are further away from the people, and it's also a strategy. More than 55 full-time offices operating for the CSU throughout Bavaria. When they say we are closer to people, they really mean that. So it's beyond just a theme, but it's a strategy. It's beyond just a theme, but it's a strategy as well. And then the Liberal Party of Australia with John Howard. This example came up more often than any other in our research on party branding. John Howard comes in, rebrands the Liberal Party, talking about the Howard Battlers. Now, in the Australian, we don't use that word battler in English, in American English, but in the Australian meaning, this refers to those blue-collar people who feel that they've been left behind by the establishment. Very, very similar to numerous groups of people who came on board for Donald Trump in the recent US election. People who feel that they were left behind by politics, not very political people, but people who could be reached out to. And John Howard became a transformative Prime Minister of Australia as a result. And so it was terrific to find, by the way, next Prime Minister of Australia, here on the screen right here, that is Peter Dutton from the Liberal Party. So look at this great quote, Peter Dutton best placed to reconnect with the Howard Battlers, according to Senator Cornwall at the time. There have been flawed approaches to political party rebranding that deserve some attention. One flawed approach tends to be, well, we'll just move to the left, and that's it. But that tends not to work because the core of the party feels abandoned and demotivated. They're not showing up because they feel the party has abandoned them. And at the same time, it doesn't increase the appeal for the less engaged anyway. Because if all you do is